I really do want to connect with you around conscious linguistics and how languaging, especially with the relationship to quantum field physics, because it is where everything is moving. We're moving out of just classic physics into these other dimensions in the quantum world. And a lot of language has a lot to say about that, where the limitations of our historical systems are becoming obsolete themselves. The limitations are fairly ingrained in our education and cultures, but there is a way of pointing out something that eliminates those limitations. And that's what one of the projects we're working on, especially in quantum physics. You're kind of preaching to the choir here. Yes, I totally agree with the way language, especially one-way communication, which comes in the form of books, newspapers, magazines, radio, television. One-way communication is wrought with imbalance and misleading information, where it cannot be, it's not subjected to debate, analysis, or feedback to the whole. It's one to many with one type of content. So you can maintain a consensus reality through one-way communication. But now that we have the internet and it's multi-directional with memory, that one-way communication is losing power dramatically, because when something is said, it gets challenged and the source of that information gets exposed, and the true things can emerge. And that's one of the biggest effects on complexity theory that we have, is that, the age of secrets has started dying. We've started predicting it back in 1987, where we were working on the internet before it went public, in terms of what are the social implications of going public with the internet. And said, well, it will be the end of the age of secrets, because if you have a secret and you don't tell anybody and you don't act on it, well, that's going to be about the only way you can keep a secret until mind reading and telepathy and other things will expose it. But if you act on it, you have left a breadcrumb. And somebody might be curious as to what caused that effect in the world. And so we are moving into you really won't be able to get away with much for much longer. Most of the system.
What is breadcrumb?
A breadcrumb is like leaving
yes,
something to follow.
Yes, breadcrumb. Okay, I get it.
Yeah. So yes, conscious linguistics is not. It's. I think I put in earlier in the chat.
Okay.
One of the quotes from Nikola Tesla, where he says everything's about, if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, it's all about, vibration, frequency, and energy. And I would add to that what you brought into the discussion today, YL, which is relationships on a holonic scale. So yes, it's all about understanding energy, frequency, and vibration in language. It's higher frequency language, which, how does that relate on scale to the different holons? We're finding that relationship is so important, that it's part of this holistic evolution that's going on. And I really want to talk to you about that in detail.
Yeah,
that's so fantastic. Has anybody ever done any plant medicine around this conversation?
Yeah.
Like ayahuasca?
Oh yeah, ayahuasca. Did mushrooms last week.
I'm on a peyote. I'm on a peyote cleanse for the next for 3 weeks, and I've done ayahuasca quite a bit, and a lot of these other experiences to get more visionary and help ground it and discover where a lot of things are coming from.
I live in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and last year we decriminalized entheogenic plants and mushrooms here. So we can now legally do ceremonies, grow, sell, participate in, have schools for journeying, as well as big events.
So,
Nice.
Mark, where was this? In which state?
Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Michigan.
Yeah,
so
and it's good throughout the whole county. So it doesn't have to be just the city of Ann Arbor. Anywhere in the county, it's been decriminalized. And we're working on decriminalizing it for the whole state of Michigan, like Portland, like Oregon has.
This is great.
Track with all of that. I totally agree. One of the things that is really fascinating is you mentioned a few examples of what you see from the Arabic, and I mean the use of the word tongue, the way you just described it, has a lot of these beautiful frequencies, which is part of conscious linguistics that we've recognized a long time ago, that the more beautiful something is, to that degree, it cuts through the mental machinery.
Yes.
It cuts through the conditioning. It cuts through all the mechanisms of the mind and gets closer to the truth, right?
Yes.
And so what we're doing in conscious linguistics, one of the aspects is to come up with beautiful questions. Instead of trying to teach something, we're going to cut through to what you already know by asking a beautiful question of your soul or your spirit or your higher consciousness. Ask the question of that in a beautiful way where only that your true nature can answer the question. And that's going to be part of some guided meditations, some beautiful storytelling that has these questions within it that help you overcome some of the limitations in society today, including solving climate change. Because if we try to solve climate change mechanically, good luck. We'll be part of the 6th great mass extinction. But if we solve it from a quantum perspective, and asking these questions, we can shift consciousness quite readily. And that's one of the elements of the conscious linguistics group. So make a connection if you can. Because I love talking to those who have found the next levels of language, which are just, even the internet, I consider training wheels for linked consciousness, right? And so in our language, all the languages are like on the road to telepathy, where semiotics and semantics are no longer necessary. You know, the idea of understanding is instantaneous, like in quantum physics, like in entanglement. We recognize this shared unity consciousness, and yet we're all still able to contribute, you know, unique gifts to the whole. But they're now in harmony instead of being competitive or isolated. So I think it was Thich Nhat Hanh that mentioned the term interbeing instead of the story of separation. We're on the path to the story of interbeing. And I know that Arabic and Sanskrit are four of the root languages. And yes, the influence, what we're getting a lot of these days are, you hear a lot about beings who are channeling. And the channels are bringing through some of that advanced understanding. And it is coming through from a higher frequency and being stepped down through the channeler to communicate. But you know, it's happened many times before. As a matter of fact, it's happened throughout all history, where the channels, not just the avatar figures, right? Not just the Muhammad and the Yeshua and the Buddha, and it's not just those really bright lights. There's so many that channeled these higher dimensions. And I loved. I posted a thing on Facebook last week. One of the more popular posts I've made in a while. And it was just a series of quotes from Albert Einstein. But it showed how he went beyond the physics to be inspired by something deeper than the physics. And one of my favorite quotes from him is that he would think about a problem 99 times and come up with nothing. Then he would swim in silence and the truth would come to him. And what I equate that truth or that quiet, that silence, is a euphemism for, or another way of saying stillness. And stillness is our true nature. It doesn't require silence, which is one of the memes that have come out of conscious linguistics, is stillness does not require silence. And that's closer to our true nature. You mentioned Peter Russell earlier. One of my, he's brilliant in terms of some of his languaging. He's very soft languaging around understanding non-duality. And I think that's where most of our questions are going to be focused, is only your true nature will really answer these questions. And by the way, your true nature always was.
Yes.
It's not something that had to evolve. It's still there. It always was there. Wasn't born, doesn't die. You're Sufis that say, look at anything and see the face of God. I would love to work on or have dialogue around a few very similar cosmologies or understandings of how the universe works. We have many that we're working on. As a matter of fact, one of the groups that I've been honored to join is working on what are called meta-ontologies, which give us a deeper understanding of how the thing works, or how it's designed. And we come up with a little different when we talk about the idea of nothing, right? The idea of the void, and then what it's filled with. And the object, you just mentioned that it might be filled with God. I would suggest, or the source of, say, something like the quantum field, like the infinite potential of the quantum field fills the void. Now, what form it comes into is based on the filters of consciousness, right, which we call mind, right? We look through these interfaces. Awareness kind of looks through this individual filter of mind that interprets all that motion, that infinite potential, that only comes into the form when observed, and it comes into a particular form based on the filter, the conditioning, the experience, which forms our belief system, which is why things like placebo would work, or why in the dual slit experiment in quantum physics, why it remains a wave until it's observed and it comes into a form.
Yeah, and what is the meaning of it?
Right, the meaning that I would describe, yeah, is what is the, why is that? And it would be the same, one of the other memes that came out of conscious linguistics was not consciousness, but awareness. Awareness has less baggage, but
Yes.
awareness is not a, it itself is not a motion. Awareness is like the void. It is the perfect stillness. It's how it interprets the motion, which is the quantum field. When it comes into form, that's what we call universal mind. When we get into separate mind, where we get the illusion of separation, we get the illusion of space-time, we get the illusion of how we think of us being separate from God or separate from any aspect of awareness, that we even say it's a separate awareness. When you try to show what is the limit or barrier or separation between when you look at the moon and I look at the moon, where's the border between your awareness and my awareness? And there really is no border of awareness. Now, on the mind level, yes, there could be a separation. You see it differently than I see it differently. But that's at the level of mind, which is imposed this idea of separation. But awareness, we think of as universal, a non-dual awareness or pure awareness. Duality enters when we interpret the motion. And so we came up with a meme for God that I would love bouncing off this group whenever possible, that what if God is simply awareness itself?
So, and while time and space is illusion, so everything is actually like a dream, and why this dream exists, and that was my question to you. Why we have this dream? So I don't care about being alive or death, die. So if I die, I'm in other dimension, I'm still there.
That's right.
So why I'm choosing for this experience?
Mm-hmm.
So this is the thing. I'm trying to find the reason in it.
I think it's one of the best tickets in this sector of the universe. Actually, at least this sector of the galaxy. This is the greatest show around, because it's not very often that a planet goes through a conscious evolution. And we are going through a conscious evolution. We're not just waiting for it to happen. We're not just going to be the effect of this evolution. We are actually consciously evolving. And that's an exciting leap or quantum leap in participation and relationship with the other sectors of this universe.
Yeah, but why, Mark? Why you are now having this experience? Why you have been chosen from the beginning? Why this experience started at first place?
I knew why I came here. I knew why I came here just for the last 2 lifetimes. I've only been to Earth 6 times in terms of my retained consciousness or soul consciousness or whatever, spirit consciousness that moves from dimension to dimension. I've only been to Earth a half a dozen times. But it was during these periods where there was this awakening or a, participation in some jump in consciousness. And the reason I came to Lifetimes this time was basically seeing the build up to World War I and II, and seeing how, there's going to be this escalation in technology, but without the understanding of their true nature, Earth would go for another reset, right? We'd have another kind of Atlantis experience where, yes, you get to start over. Okay, now do it again, only learn this time not to repeat all the same mistakes. And so that's why I'm here, and I am easily oriented to a bunch of different systems. That's why I can speak fairly clearly here, and have been working on wonderful projects while here. The last lifetime was working on the mind as the most limiting factor of humanity, is the understanding of the mind and what it is. This incarnation has been focused almost exclusively on integrated systems, the internet, and artificial intelligence as it relates to the philosophy of conscious evolution.
Yeah.
And yes, the void had to be filled with something at some point. What put it there? What put the quantum field there? What put that infinite potential into nothingness? And it's like the argument for, I think it was, what was it, the Dalai Lama, when asked about the Big Bang theory, he said, which one? And it's what put the point there to begin with, right? In the Big Bang theory, where did it all start from? The book has no name, because every time you try to describe source or God or the infinite, every time you try to describe something infinite, you have limited it to a certain degree. You have put some qualification on it that might negate some other qualification. So it's just that it includes everything.
Yeah.
And that's what when you talk about light being infinite, I trace that back to what I said about the infinite potential of the field. But any energy has a source, right? That's why, was it created or not? Yes, it was created. So it's created by something infinite, but any motion is to some degree finite. Like if it's always spinning, well, when did it start spinning? And can it stop spinning? Light is an energy which is motion and can have a starting point and an ending point, like thoughts. So that's why I after studying 28 religious philosophies before leaving high school, in Socratic dialogue every week with my father, I finally settled on non-dualism, because it goes to before the beginning. It goes to, there must be something that's nothing before the beginning, right? It's to create the universe out of a void which has lacking anything. And yeah, it's all these truths are, almost all of them are relative truths, right? If there was an ultimate truth, if there was one truth, it would be God or source or what comes out of the void, right? And that would be it. Everything else is relatively true. That's why language can only approximate it, can only point to it. I just, that makes it simple to me. My cosmology is motion, no motion. That makes up the universe.
Yeah.
That's it exactly. There's a wonderful indigenous tale it's part of many indigenous cultures, but this variation is from the indigenous in this continent that I'm in North America.
Mark, it's okay if I'm eating while you are speaking?
Of course. I don't. That motion doesn't bother me, like most motions don't bother me. And it was the creator told the animal kingdom here on Earth that there was a deep secret he wanted to keep from the humans until they were ready for it. So he's going to keep this secret from all the humans, and the animals, all lined up to say, I'll help keep the secret from the humans. What is the secret? And the secret was that they create their own reality. And the creator wanted them to not realize that until they were ready for that responsibility. And the eagle says, I will fly it to the moon. And the creator says, no, they'll actually go there. And this is an old indigenous story. And the buffalo said, I'll hide it deep in the prairie. And I said, no, they'll dig that up. And the salmon says, I'll take it to the bottom of the sea. And it said, no, they'll explore there too. And then Grandmother Earth says, who is this multidimensional being? The Grandmother Earth wisely says, hide it within them.
Amazing. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
This is how it works.
Yeah. We create our own reality. We just we're not willing to take responsibility for the reality we create. There's, in this conscious evolution, I don't want a single path or solution. I want 10 million solutions. And I want so that everyone has a chance to see that they create their own reality. And so the objective of this is not to, and it's not to do it mechanically. It's not to try to do it through the models of teaching that is unfortunately too narrow and is open to misinterpretation, especially once you've already had generational trauma and conditioning and all kinds of mental filters and interpretation programs, right? So we have to kind of bypass that or go through it, one of the two, to get to consciousness itself answering the question. And that's why we're so excited in conscious linguistics to be working with what will these beautiful questions be. And we have a couple of downloaded psychologies that help us work with the languaging, the gene keys being one of them. Very, very useful tool for asking questions beyond the shadows of the mind, asking questions of your true nature in 64 categories.
Yeah.
Understood. No, I agree.
We are here to create.
Yeah, and I was just suggesting it as one of the tools that help us with the better questions, because you're right, there are no sacred teachings. There's only enlightenment or awakening to your true nature. And that's why we're not trying to teach somebody using the gene keys. That's not how the gene keys is set up. The gene keys was like the art of contemplation. If you are struggling with something in your life, I can bring that up on the screen here.
Yeah, please. I opened it, but it's better if we talk together on your screen.
Yeah. So the two columns, or the three columns on the left of each page here, the three columns on the left are the accumulation of the mind that filters or interprets reality in a more distorting way. So it's like the shadows are the three columns to the left, both for interpreting experience inwardly and interpreting experience or projecting experience outward.
Maybe you can have an example. Pick anyone.
Right. Okay. I like frequently this group's probably going to get tired of this one, but it's the easiest one to give examples of. Gene key number 5. The introverted or repressed mental state of gene key number 5 is pessimism, where people have a kind of a negative outlook about the near future or even the current reality. They think it's all going down, it's all failing, right? That interpretation of reality or interpretation of experience is considered a not close to your true nature, which is infinite potential. So pessimism is the introverted, repressed expression. The extroverted or reactive is being pushy, trying to sell something, trying to push a reality on others, get people to think your way about this state of reality. The shadow is represented by impatience, being impatient. You mentioned impatience earlier, and that ADHD can really wreak havoc with finding patience, right? But that's still, it's kind of a restraint on consciousness, being impatient, right? You feel restrained on your ability to manifest something, or you feel restrained on some aspect. You feel limited in some regard. And it can show up in relationship, how you are impatient with certain relationships. But those are the shadow expressions. What's underneath those is patience. It's the gift of patience. But underneath the gift of patience is the concept of timelessness.
And it is, what is Siddhi? Is it Sanskrit?
Siddhi is a Hindu or Sanskrit term. It is like a divine gift or a superpower, if you will, which is just your native state abilities as a divine being, right? As a multidimensional being, these are more your native state abilities. They are covered up by the mind. They are covered up by trauma. They are covered up by experience that bury them, but they're always there. They've always been there. And so what we're doing is uncovering those, getting to the city. This is, the Gene Keys is a personal consciousness roadmap. It allows you to uncover your own consciousness. It's not a teaching, it is a roadmap for you to explore. The thing about language is that there are so many variables for each symbol, for each word, not just different definitions, but different emotions, different intentions, different colorings of language that change from morning to afternoon to evening. And so variable factor in using mathematics has to, or I think, take into consideration the state of being when language is used, as well as when it's received. So when it's issued and when it's received is colored by the state of mind of the individuals.
Exactly.
Well, this is my last career job, which was, I thought, the kind of the pinnacle of what I went into. Out of many subjects, I chose cybernetics and systems and network architecture. And my last, what people might call real job, was a systems and network architect for, or systems architect for a universal translation system. And amongst 4,700 and some languages that we still know about, that would help the translation between these different languages using machine learning and different inference engines and a kind of a universal grammar syntax as a first pass, but back and forth until it gets it right, and learn how to translate more effectively. But the problem that I came up with in terms of having machines help do this, to build a technology to help translate language to gain greater understanding or higher fidelity of understanding between humans, I ran into this problem, which is, this is a list of perceptions or perceptics, if you want, that are I've been working on for many years. It's not complete and it's not organized in this printing. There's approximately 433 perceptions that humans can experience and project through when they're communicating. And you mentioned emotion also, and tone matching, which was something that you referenced. When communication matches the frequency, right? It's funny how now you can hear the other person more clearly and understand them more clearly. It's like each of you have a radio dial that you tune in to the same channel in order to communicate effectively. That's why the cheerful man can't talk to the angry man very effectively. The angry man doesn't hear the cheerful man. So we look at what was the actual frequencies of emotions, and we ended up with finding the hertz of each of these emotions. And depending on when you're speaking or writing, what goes into language is colored by these frequencies. And these change throughout the day. And when you're writing something, how are you feeling when you wrote it? What was your intention when you wrote it? They used to call it spell casting. When you'd write something or say something, right? You were casting a spell using words with intention or with a certain emotion. And the higher the frequency, the more potent the spell. And so you're getting what I'm getting at. Trying to do it all with machines is really challenging when consciousness, being the most advanced tech on the planet, can do that if you just pull off the limitations, the confusion. And that's what we're trying to do, is get to that, where that's when telepathy will become natural, where we won't have to use words. We won't have to use symbols, perceptions or perceptics.
Perceptions.
Yeah.
Because
there are so many more.
Really,
these are the 430. I've already in my head said, well, there's at least 512 perceptions that humans can experience easily at this
Yes.
point, because it goes
Yeah.
well beyond this, right? Other
This,
dimensions.
this for me, this is like version 1, because when
Yeah.
you know the alphabet, and
Yes.
you know like the quantum energy in each letter, and
Yes.
you can combine
So
most
many
of
different
the
ways.
letters, you can combine them.
Yep.
Then it will be like it will be a
Yes.
huge number.
That's right. No,
Exactly. This is
yeah.
coming together.
I'm talking about the filters, not the language itself.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the filters of perception on language. And that's what I'm trying to get by, are the filters, so that we can perceive each other and understand each other much more gracefully. This helps in science as well, because science is limited always by perception as well. It's one of the most limiting factors. I think it was Arthur C. Clarke that said, any advanced technology becomes indistinguishable from magic, right? Because we only perceive this much, and that's what we can work with. But perception, what are the limits on perception? And perception keeps going and keeps going until you can perceive the quantum field. So those are the limits of science, is that they only work with what they can perceive and can objectify, can measure. And to go beyond that and to get into the next dimensions, that's why Einstein would swim in silence to get a download of what was actually there, available, and then try to describe it, and then try to put mathematics to it so that other humans could understand it. And I know Donald Hoffman is doing a lot of work on trying to explain this theory of mind, and from a kind of a non-dual perspective, but he's actually working with the mathematics to give evidence to the kind of the academia and the science world, so that they can walk the path to just this aha moment that realizes that they are aware and that they always were aware.
Yeah.
And they had goggles on that were coloring the reality with a lot of limitations.
Yeah.
I love to hear when someone says you can't imagine. I love that phrase. Just instantly unravels itself, right? Who said there was a limit on imagination? Who put that rule down? I want to talk to them. Yes, I can imagine the relief of being able to speak. David Ellums, right? Our World, David Ellums.
Yeah, I know David. I tried to connect with him several times, but we didn't have the chance yet.
Well, he's got a condition, a type of Asperger's, right? Where he has a lot of trouble communicating also. But David and I think it was our second, maybe our third call, was 10 and a half hours. The objective of getting people to just have a safe space to let out their gifts, their deeper understandings, to let those out in a dialogue, is one of the reasons I joined Denise in this group. Was I said, well, David Bohm had an answer for that. He called it dialogue, a Bohmian dialogue. And the whole purpose of it was to leave judgment at the door. Don't judge, don't bring even in your opinions to a given dialogue. Leave those outside. What you want to do is listen very, very carefully to what's being proposed. And if there are any limiting factors that you see, ask clarifying questions. Are those needed? Are those limitations necessary for this, whatever is being presented? The objective is just to pull off the assumptions, pull off any limiting aspects of an idea so that it can shine, it can emerge, it can grow into its gift, right? So eliminating judgment is one of the keys, because judgment leads to separation thinking and multiple opinions and different competitions, and it's create a safe space and let the gifts come out and listen carefully for what gifts are trying to be expressed. Oh, well, that attraction that you spoke of just there, it's not just well, it reminded me of love also. Love tries to unite. It's
exactly.
Buckminster Fuller called it metaphysical gravity.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's magnetic. Love is magnetic, and when
what he called it?
He called it metaphysical gravity.
Gravity, yeah.
Yeah, metaphysical gravity is what love kind of behaves like. And when Denise offers this opportunity, and it's like you and I really having a lot of synergy in projects and networks and concepts, and yes, slightly different different experiences, to say the least, but the similar outcomes in terms of understanding. And to see us kind of just be pulled together, that's part of metaphysical gravity. It finds its way.
Yeah, I'm happy for that.
That's a beautiful picture of fear is a contraction. It is a getting smaller, hiding, withholding. Fear is a contraction without pressure within, but compression, where the pressure keeps building, always leads to expansion.
Exactly. Yes.
And so we're moving out of fear, which is the story of separation, the story of hiding, getting smaller. Like when the pandemic started, and they used the phrase social distancing. They could have said physical distancing and promoted social interaction online or something, right, to compensate. But no, they went social distancing, which gets you to isolate in place from any interaction. And that led to, isolation, which is entropy, which is suicide and depression and other things. So using fear is been the story of separation. And now that we're waking up and realizing, how many new friends did you make in the last year online? How many new networks have you connected with? How many other beautiful beings did you find through somebody, through these connections? There has been a shift. The only difference is, like Gil Scott Heron said back in 1970, the revolution will not be televised.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're using
Yes.
a different form of communication for this revolution. And it's not a revolution in the sense of power over power. No, this is a rapid evolution.
Right.
So I am so looking forward to seeing that what I've, and I will just, this is the last time I will share screen today. I just wanted to pull this up because this is looking at the frequencies of the letters in the Arabic alphabet. And but I'm really looking forward to getting into that and studying that, because I really do love the any path to greater understanding, which is what science was supposed to be. But they started objectifying everything and said the accumulation of knowledge, and they were going to build on knowledge when they should be seeking deeper understanding, which is an infinite path, right? And so science became the study of limits instead of the infinite possibility. There's several networks I want to connect you up with if you're not connected with them already. So there are other places that we might be able to share your presentation with, as well as putting you in touch with some key people in some of the other networks that they understand what you're trying to do. And they're in the global south. As a matter of fact, the folks at GaiaNet, are you familiar with those guys?
So when you learn, you can help others to learn. And we
There
are
was somebody here in this country said, I think if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it. And there was another piece of Mark Twain said, history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. And so we have this where we keep experiencing life in a particular way until we learn enough from it so that we don't have to keep repeating that mistake or that problem or that limitation. But until we learn about that limitation, we will keep pulling it in, we'll keep experiencing it, because that's what the universe wants, is us to uncover all of those limitations. There we go, happy.
Can you see me? Where am I? Oh, that was great. I got one thing for you.
Okay.
Love,
Do you want it on the recording so it's for posterity's sake? This is wisdom. I want to record it if it's wisdom.
oh, okay. It's permission.
Okay.
I cut little snippets, you know that.
Yeah.
Like that story you told.
Oh, the creator
I would
story?
like permission to cut that and share it freely.
Of course.
And there's one where you talk about game A is crumbling, and game B is it's easy to take the helicopter off the Titanic.
Yeah, it's much easier. Yeah, to get off on lifeboats. Yeah.
So, but what I'm saying is I find you like the perfect representation of what it is that I would say in the world is that your wisdom, and I mean, you look, you just look the part.
Oh, mine didn't always look this way either. You know, I may have earned a gray beard, but when I was doing some of my best work in Silicon Valley, yeah, I didn't look anything like this. It's okay. It looks are kind of can be deceiving sometimes too.
Well, what I'm trying to say is I'm trying to introduce game B to people in game A.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there's another beautiful diagram for that I've shared occasionally. It's this one.
Oh, okay.
This from the Berkana Institute is shows the dominant system, which is game A,
Right.
is in decline now, and there are pioneers that have been dropping off for decades now, saying this is unsustainable. There are people still in the corporate world or in the game A institutions that are trying to create safe spaces within those corporations, trying to affect it from the inside. But they are also the guides to the lifeboats, which are this transition link off of the Titanic. And there will remain some hospice work to do for those institutions, not the physical structures, but some of the physical structures will have to be repurposed. But the software for the institutions can be put to, to compost.
Right.
And the emergent system, which has been fed by the pioneers and these others, have been networking before the internet. And now with the internet, they're finding greater and greater synergies, and it's forming this holonic network. And these circles are getting bigger and including more circles within the circles. And they're past this line now. They're past the break-even line. They're now forming the new model. It's just not being televised yet. But when we start to really, when these islands of coherence that you see in the bottom emergent system, when they really start synergizing, it's such an easy choice for anyone who's still in game A to say, oh, my lifeboat is heading to this holon in game B, right? I know that's where my true gifts are going to be not only recognized, but so welcome. And so it's an easy choice to get off the Titanic, of which there are 12.
So, okay, so forming communities of practice, nourish, and growth of influence. And then I thought that I heard while speaking about communities you start with local and then there's levels. And it seemed to me like I almost heard him talking about almost like citizen assemblies or something.
Yeah, yeah.
People would come together and
that's right,
as a group and make decisions.
Yep.
Gather the evidence. And so yesterday, I put out this thing on Facebook, that have you had enough? It's like, let's start doing citizen assemblies and distributed voting, digital voting.
That's right. Why not?
Why not?
We really don't have to ask permission to do it for our own communities. So let's do it. Yeah, that's what the new network designers have been saying. The designers of the new networks that aren't going to be hierarchical.
Right.
They're decentralized and distributed, right? And I loved Tim Berners-Lee, the guy who wrote the HTML and HTTP for the web, the World Wide Web, and got those protocols standardized as part of an open source system of standardization. When he did that, that was like the original intent was to have this pretty flat network that was open sourced so that people could really build on it. Well, but our culture, which is hierarchical in structure, started imprinting itself on that. And we ended up with these gatekeepers and hierarchies on the net, gatekeepers and controllers. The tech giants became, too big to fail, like the banks, right? So, but now the second generation, or third, some would say, third generation of the internet is coming back where it kind of limits that hierarchy. It keeps decentralized, kind of like the mycelium network.
Right.
And And Tim Berners-Lee famously has been quoted as saying, and I didn't ask Google's permission.
Mhm.
And I love that. And so Holochain, same concept. Yeah, they didn't ask Yahoo or Google or Microsoft or
Well,
Amazon.
Well, back to permission. I didn't ask you for permission in the beginning because you said it's all open source and we're
it
all
is.
an open book. And
Yeah,
I just feel like your wisdom, your candle needs not to be put under a bushel.
well,
No, it needs to see the light.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate the love. Thank you, Thomas. I'm
Because
just grateful for any relationship. I like to say that why, if we just, it's much easier to just unconditionally love everybody than it is to pick and choose.
Right.
So let's just share the love. It's okay. We're all in this together. We might as well work in harmony.
Right. And I feel really blessed in the last, I don't know what it is, but in the last few years, I've just, especially like when I came to Copiosis, I agreed to do this all unconditionally.
Yeah.
It's like I see what I want and I'm not going to let my judgment keep me from it.
No, good. Judgment's a
And,
limiting factor, that's for sure.
Right. It's so limiting. So, okay. And I don't know what to say about the scheduling of I heard you ask Denise for earlier scheduling of the meeting for next week, but
Yeah.
she
Well,
tried.
we're gonna try to get together tomorrow.
She tried.
Yeah, I know she did, but she was in the middle of a move and she had some other stuff. And I missed a call from her when I think she really wanted to talk to me about something. It turned out it was more about Nana and Michael, I think, but I don't know because I missed the call. And I've been wanting to touch base with Michael and Nana because they reached out to me and I've been trying to reach out to them and find a time. And it's been fairly challenging. And this is the first call Michael has missed in I don't know how long. So I just want to connect up with them,
Well,
see what's going on.
well, I can tell you this, and I kind of said it in public, that I think Denise did a heroic job. It kind of all fell in her lap last night, and she pulled it together and she got it done.
She's amazing.
And I said so.
Good.
So
good.
Okay.
I agree.
I think I'm going to turn it off.
Okay. Sounds good. Or did I start this one?